what's up, everybody? True Boxing here. Thank you for coming back to get hit with the truth. Today, doing my 2021 year-end top 10s, and we are going to discuss the number one fighter in 122-pound super bantamweight division. My opinion is the undefeated, unified WBC WBO champion, Stephen Fulton Jr. from the United States. Stephen Fulton came out of nowhere. This guy wasn't even ranked heading into this year because he really hadn't beaten anybody even close to the top 10. You know, he had been performing nicely. He moved himself in position in 2020 for a world title shot. And to be honest, if he would have got his shot, he would have been a top 10 guy heading into this year. But days before the vacant title shot against Angelo Leo, he had to pull out with COVID. And Angelo Leo went on to win the vacant title against Tremaine Williams. But Stephen Fulton still was guaranteed a title shot. And in January of 2021, Fulton would get his opportunity against Leo, and he cashed in on it in a major way. He would dominate Leo in that fight, absolutely outboxed him, outclassed him, and beat him up over 12 rounds to a one-sided decision as he captured his first world title. That was impressive. But then the option was put on the table that the winner of Brandon Figueroa and Luis Nery for the WBC title would unify belts with Stephen Fulton in the second half of the year. And Brandon Figueroa, the big undefeated fighter, knocked out Luis Nery to capture the WBC belt, and then the unification was on. Two PBC guys, undefeated, were going to go at each other. Brandon Figueroa got COVID in September and had to pull out of the fight, but it was postponed. But then in November, these two guys would lock horns in the main event on the Showtime card, and what a fight it ended up being. It ended up being one of the better fights of 2021. They went toe-to-toe in a great, great fight. Now, when the smoke cleared, Stephen Fulton Jr. would secure the biggest victory of his career in unified belts with a hard-fought 12-round majority decision. Some people didn't like it. Brandon Figueroa didn't like the decision. Stephen Fulton said, hey, you know, I'll give you a rematch if you want. And Brandon Figueroa seemed to snare at that, as he might, he's likely moving up to 126 featherweight because he's always been a big guy at super bantamweight. But in that fight, again, I've said this before in past videos, it's a pick your poison type fight. It's what do you score rounds on? Is it cleaner, more effective shots than you would have picked Stephen Fulton Jr.? For me, I gave it the eyeball test because my internet connection at the time, and I was trying to watch the fight, kept cutting in and out. So I saw the majority of the fight, but I wasn't able to score the rounds in detail like I normally do because of the connection disruption that I was having. But from the eyeball test, I thought Stephen Fulton was getting the better of Figueroa because he was landing those cleaner, harder shots, countering, hitting them with the cleaner, harder shots. But are you a type of guy that scores on more punches landed, you know, overall, even if it's to the arms, to the body, all that kind of stuff? Are you that type, the guy that throws more, that's coming forward, you know? Then you would have picked Brandon Figueroa. But it was close enough to call either way, and I feel like the right guy won, but I really wouldn't have had a problem if Figueroa won the fight because it was that close. But Stephen Fulton Jr., with that win, fighting through that fire, became, in my opinion, the number one guy at 122, just slightly ahead of MJ Mirajan Akhmadaliev. But 2022 is going to be Fulton's year to prove it. And he has a boatload of options here. First off, there is the option of unifying all four belts and becoming the undisputed champion with a fight against Mirajan Akhmadaliev. That is an option, and both guys have expressed interest in it. But as of right now, we don't know because the two promotions have to cross the street, plus both guys have mandatories due. So, you know, Stephen Fulton, the next best option in the first half of the year, if he can't do undisputed, I absolutely believe it's going to be former unified champion Daniel Roman. And if Fulton goes out there and beats Roman more convincingly than MJ did a couple years back in 2020, then Stephen Fulton's really going to be your unanimous number one. But outside of that, undisputed could happen in the second half of the year if it doesn't happen in the first half, and vice versa could be Daniel Roman, or there is a litany of options at 122 for Stephen Fulton Jr. The PBC really has locked down 122. They really have. There's the winner of Luis Nery and Carlos Castro that's colliding on February 5th would be a good option, you know? there's other fights out there that make sense for Stephen Fulton Jr. He just has to get through his first one, and I really think the first fight is either going to be against what's his name, Daniel Roman in a mandatory defense, or undisputed against Murajan Akhmadaliev. Now, I absolutely believe he beats Daniel Roman comfortably, but MJ is going to be a tough fight, and that's going to be a fun one. I really think that's a matchup of the two best guys at 122. It's not because they hold all 4 belts. I think skill-wise, that is the toughest matchup that Stephen Fulton could have. But we'll see what happens, and I hope it does happen. I hope more people continue to unify belts. But Stephen Fulton Jr., a pleasant surprise at 122, came out of nowhere to become the #1 guy in my year-end top 10 at 122-pound super bantamweight. So that's it. I hope you enjoyed it. The #1 fighter at 122 super bantamweight for my 2021 year-end top 10 is the undefeated unified champion, Stephen Fulton Jr. from the United States. All right, guys, True Boxing. You've been hit with the truth.